And welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. As always, I'm your co-host Brian, and joining me as always is your co-host Jim.
Heidi ho. I'm gonna just like gag and clear my throat and stuff. Just try to sound sicker than you, and that way it'll kind of offset.
I don't even know what the hell. I woke up this morning with a swollen throat.
Heidi ho. I'm gonna just like gag.
And
yeah,
it is.
I woke up with an itchy eye.
Yeah, we're both a little
under
under the weather.
Earache in my eye.
Oh,
or something.
That sounds terrible.
That's actually a Cheech and Chong thing, but yes.
Oh, is it? We're again Sans Hunter this evening. Sadly, he still has some.
He's victim of an invasion of the relatives.
Yeah, he's got family stuff, so he won't be back till next week? I think he's coming back.
I think so, yeah.
But for this episode, we have two guests, and this is their second time on the show. So we're welcoming back from Mod Made Games, Christopher Sheldon-Dante, Supreme Commander from Boston.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, and Andrew Richardson, lead developer, and he's just north of me in Glendale, California.
Yeah, I'm joining you from the Los Angeles branch of Mod Made Games.
My God. It's so funny that you're new to LA, and it's like, oh, that's so cute. I've been here for a decade, and it never gets old.
Yeah, well, I'm loving it here.
Oh, it's the best. It's the only downside really is the drought. I mean, we haven't.
It rained today. It's raining right now, I think. And I met so many wonderful people in like video production and writers. So many great artists here.
Oh yeah, this is the place to come if you want to meet artists and stuff. They're freaking coming out of the woodwork. You can't go to a Starbucks without seeing someone writing a screenplay. So we are here to talk about. It's been almost a year since you guys were here. Did you know that? It's been almost exactly a year. Like you were here last April.
Jeez, really? Has it been that long?
Yeah. So it's been almost exactly a year.
That's crazy.
So I believe the game was just called Voidborne then. At least that's the title I had for the show. But now it's Descendants Voidborne.
Yeah, so we really like the name Descendants. That's what we were calling it originally because, it's about your descendants as they explore the stars. But it turns out there's a lot of other games named that, and a band, and a movie. So we figured as an indie game, we had to pick a title that was unique. So we have a two-part title. It's Descendants Voidborne.
Did you guys look and see how many other space games have the word void in it before you did that? I'm just asking because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a good number.
But we don't have the word star in it, so
that's true.
We're a little bit
That's
separate.
true. But there are just so many things being done to voids. They're being born. They're expanding. They're doing all sorts of things.
What you should do is put Of the Dead and Might and Magic in the title somewhere.
Ooh. Yeah, Chris, what about Voidborne or Might and Magic Voidborne?
Oh no!
Descendants of Might and Magic.
What about
that?
Void of the Dead, Born of Might and Magic?
Oh,
pow!
Ooh.
There it is.
You guys might.
And you win an award for like longest title too.
Well,
Yeah,
talk to the
I'm
trademark
always-
office about that.
I'm all for adding on just crazy titles onto it. So 9,000 and just random numbers and digits throughout the title.
Descendants Voidborne, Blood of Kings. This time it's personal.
Return of Omicron 2.
Of the Dead. Man, that would get you noticed on Steam. What the fuck is this game with the long ass title?
Somebody needs to make a game called Free Candy.
Oh,
Sounds creepy.
that sounds very
Right?
creepy.
It's like it operates down by the river. I don't know.
I mean, there's already Shower with Your Dad. How much creepier can Steam?
Well, there was Shower with Your Stripper Simulator that came out too.
No, wait a
Saw
minute.
that.
What?
Well, maybe it was like Make It Rain. I don't know.
What?
No, it looks like it was done by the Shower with Your Dad guys. But it's a pole dancing stripper game.
What?
Yeah, it's on Steam right now.
Oh, for
It's like
God's
ridiculous.
sakes! Let's not say the name of it. Let's not buzzmark it.
I can't even remember what it's called.
That's
but
good.
It's redonkulous.
That's good. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I got a weird cough today. So hello everyone in the chat room. So we're here to talk about your, if I recall, quick playing, Risk Legacy like, kind of roguish strategy game where you jump from like one era to the next. You do something, you die. You do something, you die. Something like that. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, that's you got the gist. It's basically like a fast-paced strategy game, but I don't know. It kind of at this point doesn't exactly resemble any existing genre 100%. It's more like a weird hybrid of maybe tactical 4X and a little bit of like roguelike FTL story style in there too.
Right. Now, it's been a year since we played, so give me like a bullet list of what's happened since then with the game.
Sure. So if I can remember where it was the last time we played.
Well, I was looking at the video today just to refresh my memory, so I'll throw it at you. Basically, the game was like one ship, you flew to a planet, you blew stuff up. That was basically the game back then.
All right. Well, so depending on what features are working in this build, and sadly there may be a handful of missing ones, since then we've updated the UI. We've added a system for interacting with colonies. Actually, probably the most significant change is we sort of rethought a little bit about how player choices could have lasting impacts on the world. So instead of having so the way we basically do that is we have missions that we present the player with, and those have the capacity to actually change what sort of missions you get in the future. So like to give an example, if you might get contacted by some local rebels, and they'll tell you that they need weapons, and then you'll get the choice of either delivering weapons to them and trading for nuclear arms, or contacting the government and rooting those rebels out. And based on which of those two choices, you could end up with either a totalitarian regime or an area of space that's sort of in civil war.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting. The last time it was basically just flying around and shooting stuff, but this time it's like your boy has been kidnapped. Go here and save him.
Yeah. So that feature, the whole system for missions, unfortunately, we only have that one mission in right now because I was working on. We've done just a ton of work in the past month. Totally redid the UI. I updated the way the map generation works. The controls are totally non-intuitive, but if you hit semicolon when you're in that tactical view zoomed out of your ship, it'll actually pull back and show you the whole galaxy.
Whoa!
And then if you hit L, it'll zoom back into your current ship. Yeah, so it's pretty big. We switched from sort of having the galaxy stream in around you. Before it was technically infinite, but it was hard to get your bearings. And we sort of switched to having about 5,000 stars per galaxy, with each of those having places you can visit.
Right. So remind me, once you move to a system, what can you can build? It looks like you can build stuff in this system.
Yeah. So if you click on your current system, then there will be a list in the bar on the left, and each of those things, if you click on them, will give you details about what they do, and then you can choose to play them in that system.
Oh, okay. It looks like I've run into a bug where this guy will not go away.
Actually, that's quite possible. How do I I actually don't have the live stream open. Is there a way I could get that on?
Oh yeah, sure. Hang on. I thought I'd hang on.
Yeah, so if you search for Space Game Junkie on YouTube,
yeah,
there's a live channel. But it looks like the cool reptilian dude.
Oh yeah, sure.
Won't go away.
Yeah, it won't.
Well, reptiles, they can be very persistent.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere, so I'm going to hang on.
Well, I'll talk about this guy as long as he's on the screen.
As long as he's on the screen, yeah.
So we don't have a name for this race of people, but the idea is they're snake-like, but their head is covered in prehensile tentacles that they use to manipulate things. Yeah, and they have a sort of a background in genetic engineering, and this is sort of a form that's optimized for space travel, for zero gravity and fine manipulation of things on the ship.
Oh. All right, so it looks like I'm just looking at some of the buttons here. It looks like you can build things in a system, but you can also attack defenders of that system. And then what? When you destroy all the defenders, you take over the system?
So the systems actually aren't owned by one player.
Oh.
Technically, other players could come and build things there too.
Oh.
But the opportunities about what you have available to build will depend on sort of your standing with those other players. For example, if you've got a faction that's more focused on military, you might get opportunities to actually, instead of having those cards just be building new things, some of those cards will be taking things from other players. So there's both sort of offensive, political, economic ways of interacting all simulated with that system.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm going to close and restart since I can't really do anything.
Yeah, I unfortunately I was aware when I sent this build that it had some pretty major bugs, but I wanted to get you something with the new features too.
Well, that's fine. I mean, early access. That's what it's all about. Early access, ladies and gentlemen. It said in the bottom right corner, development build, and this is very. Where would you say this is? Alpha, beta? This is probably alpha. I'm guessing somewhere.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is definitely alpha. Actually, in terms of timeline, the nice thing is all of those changes I've been making to the code base recently mean that we're not too far off of having something that's a little bit more stable and something we could put out and actually start having people try out.
Oh.
So I'm cautiously optimistic that we could have something like that in the next few months.
Oh, nice. And is that going to be like a crowd? Oh yeah, you guys are about to launch a Kickstarter, aren't you, or something? Am I getting my developers confused?
You're absolutely right. We were going to do the Kickstarter actually on the 4th, but I think we've decided to push it back just another month so that we can hopefully have a more complete build that we can show to people.
That's fair. Allow them to play something before I've noticed a lot of successful Kickstarters give folks a demo to play, like Overload recently. The Descent folks, they had a playable teaser folks could play that I think really helped push their campaign over the edge. It was the 11th hour, but they made it.
Yeah, we're trying to decide if we should put in a real push and the effort to get a playable solid build out for a Kickstarter. Do you think that's worth it? We're really motivated to by the prospect of showing the game to people, to getting it out there. That's why for this podcast we were how many features can we put in immediately to be able to show them.
What's he shooting at? I don't know. Oh god. Oh Jesus.
All right, as long as this guy's on screen, I'm going to give a shout out to Victor Kalea, our character artist.
Okay.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Oh, crashed again.
Whoa, I've never seen this view.
I don't know what
the risks of showing a in-house experimental build.
Well, see, fans of gaming like me and people who like Space Game Junkie love seeing how the sausage is made. That's why they come to see the podcasts, Q&A, stuff like that. So I know early access is a double-edged sword. You don't want to show people, oh my god, everything's going to break. But at the same time, it gives us an insight into how much hard work goes into these things, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And a real testament to that hard work is I have seen a lot of bugs, and I haven't seen this bug. Development is always new and exciting things to fix.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on here.
I'm pretty sure that what happened is somehow the camera is floating ships way too close, and it's just not exiting out of that combat state.
Yeah, I think
Chris, can you press escape to get out of the scene?
Nope.
Or press Q to end the animation.
Try pressing L. Try pressing semicolon and then L. See what happens.
Actually, I did press Q and it quit the game.
Okay.
That's fine. We got the funny Space Ghost Coast to Coast experiencing. technical
Yeah.
difficulties thing.
Yeah.
So that's always fun. Okay. There.
It's too bad that show's no longer on.
Oh, I know. I was such an addict of it back in the day. I never missed an episode. Oh my god.
And they had some pretty great shorts introduced on that show too.
Yeah, I actually found a torrent that is all the episodes of Space Ghost.
Wait, what? What? Please send me that. I need that very badly. If only
for a small fee.
If only for the Weird Al episode. That's probably one of my favorite episodes. That's the one that always sticks out in my memory. Okay, there we go. We're back. All right. So the goal of the game. Let's talk about the gameplay since it keeps crashing. The goal of the game is to basically, what is it? Expand as much as you can before your current character dies.
So the goal
something
is
like that.
Kind of, yeah. So the goal is to amass victory points.
Okay.
So basically, you're competing to be the most influential faction in that individual era of the galaxy's history.
Oh, okay.
So like, go on.
No, I was gonna finish what you're saying, and then I want to ask about these eras that you have that we can select here.
Sure. So I was just going to say that basically all of those things that you can do, the missions, the building things and systems, fighting other ships, trade, although it's broken in this build, although the other build we sent you has it, and upgrading your ship, all of those things can interact with they're basically methods to amass influence. So you use them to interact and gain points.
And your ship, unlike a lot of like 4X games and whatever, it looks like your ship is like your avatar.
Yeah, so you actually have a handful of ships. So if you've played
okay.
XCOM or any tactical strategy games,
sure,
you can switch between your 4 or 5 different ships and use them to interact with your systems. Exactly.
Oh, okay. So you have a team of ships.
Yeah, are they all out on the map at the same time, or you activate them and then it appears?
They're all out on the map at the same time. So if you once the game started, actually, if you look in the bottom left, it has details for your current ship, and it also has portraits for your other ships. So you can click on those to switch between them.
Oh, okay. Let me do that. Oh, I see. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, basically, so the motivation behind that was I don't know if you guys have played like Civilization or any of those games. It can take a really long time to finish because there's sort of like a big pacing issue at the beginning and end of the game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a common problem with a lot of grand strategy games. Is the early game is so exciting.
Yeah.
The early game is like, ooh, discovery, excitement, and then slog, micromanagement, slog.
Try switching ships. I'm not sure why why it's not a.
See, what this strikes me as, and I may be way wrong, but just the appearance, it's almost like, wow, my brain just locked up. Brian, what's that old game that you just got on the Genesis?
Starflight.
Starflight, yes. I was thinking Star Command, and that ain't it. But anyway, it's almost like Starflight with multiple ships.
It does kind of seem like that.
You're like going to the planet and then you mess with the people there. But do you actually own planets, or you're just influencing the planets?
You influence them, but you can own things on the planets, if that makes sense. So like you could build a nuclear reactor on a planet, and you would be the group that gains credits and influence for doing that, and you'd be able to visit it and get benefits of that.
Okay, so it's not really like you're playing as like, hey, here's my 10 planets and I'm building things and sending them out. And it's not traditional 4X in that way. It's more like you journey around and do things in a place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we wanted so basically the pacing in normal 4X games has a really slow pacing to begin with, because you don't have a lot of units, and so you end up waiting and skipping a bunch of turns. And there's
that's
some exploration after that, and then the end game, as you're well aware probably, sort of gets this glacial pace where you have so many different things that you're switching between to control. The micro just gets insane.
Well, see, that's the thing that I find in every 4X game, like Civilization on up, right?
Yeah.
Is in the early game, it's fun because you're building, but then once the other X's are gone, right? Like the whole explore thing is done, and everybody knows where stuff's at, and everybody owns stuff, right? And at that point, you know whether you're winning or losing, because if you only have like a couple planets and the enemy is already sending like big fleets over, it's like, well, it's time to start over again.
Brian, sorry to interrupt one sec, but try starting up the other build. It'll also give an interesting example of where we were a month ago. So.
Okay, doke. Let's see.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jim. That you're absolutely right. That with 4Xs in general, that's a pacing. That's true of almost all of those games. And sort of when we approached this, we were originally thinking like, we're going to make a 4X. How can we fix that? And what we ended up with is, very different than a traditional 4X. But that's sort of the motivation behind that ship-centric control. It means that at the beginning of the game, you still have that really like fast, interesting play. You're not waiting, and at the end, you instead of having overburdened with micro, you have this big empire you're managing, but you're still visiting it one location at a time.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's the thing in games that has always kind of bothered me in the traditional 4X is that build queue. And it's just like, hey, how about like let me have a pile of money, and if I can afford it, just bam, it exists, right? Like the barrier to building something shouldn't be like, okay, I have to wait on the shipyard to like knock together enough production to do it. It's just like, do I have enough money? All right, there it is. And but it's and I can see in this. Well, how does currency work in your game? As far as is it a money economy? Is it influence stuff? Like what kind of currency systems do you have?
So yeah, there's two primary resources. There's like money, which I think is probably some sort of cryptocurrency because why not? And then there's your influence points. Influence points are more of a scorekeeping thing. So money is really the primary currency used for exchange. But on top of that, every system you visit actually has its own little commodities market, and you can see that in this build.
And this build is from 2 months ago? We've completely changed the user interface since then, as you can see.
Whoa!
Yeah, so if you zoom in on the system here, in the bottom right you'll see an option. In the bottom right you'll see an option for trade when you click on the system.
Oh, interesting.
So click on the star.
Yeah, and so actually we have the commodities market in. I just haven't migrated it over to using the new user interface. So if you've ever played the game like Drug Wars or actually, honestly, if you've played, I'm sure you guys have played space trading games like Elite.
Oh, of course.
Or,
of course.
Yeah. So a lot of those games use a commodities market, and it's kind of fun flying around trying to find price differences. So in this, not only can you find those differences, but you can actually help make them by the missions that you complete. Like creating those shortages will affect the prices on the planets.
So is there any sort of a diplomacy thing where not beyond the people on the planet liking you or not, but can you be like an emissary to another planet and kind of be like a matchmaker? Like, hey, let me talk to you about making peace with your neighbors over there, and you guys can get a trade route or something.
Yeah.
Try pressing tab to go to your next ship.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, there absolutely is diplomacy like that. So there's two types.
Like some trade ships going back and forth between those planets. At least they look like haulers or something.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, one thing we keep track of in the game's logic is regions of space and what factions and groups and organizations are present there. So you can have pretty complex relationships between different factions. You might have a central government and another faction that serves as the military for that government. And all of our politics are mitigated through that mission system. So if you're playing as their military, you'll get a lot of directions to go and, conquer and defend and do what a military does. But you also might get opportunities from other players to do things like have a coup and overthrow the central government.
Oh, that's cool. So, like, if I want to cause a war between two planets for my own benefit,
Sure.
I would assume there would be a reason. Like, could I start smuggling guns, to the guy that I want? It's like to the underdog, right? I can start taking him weapons, maybe steal technologies off a neighbor and give them to him on the sly or something. And it seems almost like this is a game where the game should be playing a traditional 4X, and I'm running around in it meddling with it.
Yeah, so actually, you have a really interesting question there, which is sort of, sorry if I'm getting this wrong, definitely let me know. But it seems like there's an interesting point there, which is it seems like you don't have that traditional role of just total omnipotence. I can directly control everything in my empire every turn that you have in a 4X. So what is your motivation and goal as a player, and like what drives the play? Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, partially that, and it's more. There's part of this that is just like a statement, right? Which would be like, let's say your game is actually Galactic Civilizations or something like that,
Mhm.
and I'm one ship that's in there, but I can go around and I can either be a peacemaker or I can be an asshole and kind of like influence things that happen between the other virtual players, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh well, this guy would trade technology with that guy in a game. I'd open up a diplomacy screen and whatever. Well, here it's kind of like, well, I could go get the technology and then give it to somebody they don't want to have it.
Yeah, that's actually exactly right. So the whole it's a different perspective for a strategy game like that. So it's 4X from the perspective of your captains and your capital ships. And sort of, I guess it kind of brings up a somewhat interesting thing, which is Andrew in the sidebar has been talking about how we think of it as almost a card-based game, and the reason for that is the way we handle missions is actually pretty cool. If you're familiar with any deck building games, I don't know if you're familiar with like Dominion or there's a Marvel deck building game. There's a handful of them out there now. But your decisions about which missions and to complete basically change what opportunities for missions the world is populated with. So as a player, from your perspective, not only do you have the immediate goals of choosing which missions to do and trying to get the most points on this turn, but you also have to consider long-term strategy. So if is it better for me in the long run to have a war-torn area where I can be a war profiteer, or is it better to have a more orderly government where I can manipulate things politically?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. Have you played Last Federation from Arkan Games? Chris Park made it. Because in that, you play one ship, like you're the last person in this race, and there's like I think 5 or 6 other planets, and it's one solar system, but there's different races on each of the planets, and your goal is in a self-serving way. You basically manipulate the politics of those other 6 races to make them fight each other or make peace with each other or whatever happens to suit your personal agenda. But it's basically a diplomacy manipulation game. But then it's got a like a turn-based ship combat, almost a bullet hell thing that's going on in there. It's really strange gameplay, but it's neat though. But it's just kind of like I kind of there's some elements of this that kind of remind me of that. Although this is on a much grander scale because you got a bajillion stars out there and whatever.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. I feel like I've heard of Last Federation. I think I may have even watched a Let's Play of it.
Another game that is a lot like that is Drox Operative, which is a big favorite of Brian's, and that's imagine your game, but it's Diablo.
That
and
sounds
you're a space station, not a dude, or
Yeah.
a spaceship, not a guy. That's basically it. If you don't own Drox Operative, I would strongly suggest it. But then again, your game will suffer because you'll be playing Drox Operative all the time.
I'm adding it to my list of suffering. So hold on.
Yeah, it's definitely like next Steam sale. That's a must do, and it's got really nice co-op to it too.
Cool.
But
Definitely check that out.
It's an actiony way to kill some time. But it's like, yeah, you'll go to a planet, and there'll be whatever race on there, and it's playing a 4X, and then you're just a meddler that's out in the galaxy, and you can go to a planet, and they'll be like, yeah, we don't like those guys over there. Why don't you go kill some of their ships for us, or go find us some artifacts, or they give you kind of quests, right? Like go out and do things, and some of the people don't like each other, and you can decide kind of what goes on with that by what you do. So it's like, and you can't be friendly to everybody, because if you're nice to one guy, somebody else isn't going to like you for it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that definitely sounds worth checking out. And I have to say, my amount of time that I spend playing games has dropped off significantly since I've started working on this. And so to try and like make up for that, I've been like watching Let's Plays and doing things in the background, but it's just not the same. I feel like I've missed out on, a good 80% of my gaming time over the past 2.5 years. So
Yeah, it kind of has that effect on doing that, because it's but then again, it's kind of like you come home and it's like, well, what can I do? I have a decision point, right? Like I can screw around on a game, and that's time I'm not going to get back, or I can make my thing, and so it's definitely time better spent.
I think somebody has the YouTube channel on in the background.
Is it playing through on the audio? I'm not getting it.
Yeah, Chris, I think it might be you. Do you have the YouTube channel on?
I have the live stream on, but it's muted. Oh, so someone just tuned in, and I noticed Michael asked about the persistence mechanic. Do you guys mind if we talk a little bit about that?
No, go ahead.
All right. So the way the persistence mechanic works is, I'm not sure exactly when you tuned in, Michael, but the individual era. So the gameplay is divided up into basically eras that are chapters of the history of the galaxy. And for each one, you're sort of competing to be the most influential faction in that era. What happens though is at the end of that specific time period, which is when a certain amount of influence has been accrued. There's I think it's 1,000 per round right now. Then we sort of say that's the end of that chapter, and we simulate a little bit of time, and then you have the option to play as the descendants of civilizations from that previous match. But the world persists. So if you set up interesting economic situations, or you've set up, you've built colonies, you've built industries, those things will stick around with just a little bit of variation just from that time simulation between eras.
So things kind of continue on the course that you had them on, but it won't be in the same state whenever you get there, right? Like you guys simulate like how many years, like 100 years, 1,000,000 years, or something.
Well, we're still actually playing with that. So right now, it's something that could be in the final game anywhere from a few dozen turns to being significantly longer than that. As it's actually set up right now so that it's down. I don't even think we have it put up to anything right now, because that's just how we've been playing with it. But the nice part about it is, or I guess the interesting part is, if we do simulate time, the longer that is, the more chance that gives us to give interesting places to discover that happened while you weren't playing, right? So it's sort of a trade-off between seeing what you did and seeing a lot of things that unfold that you get to discover as a result of what you did in the earlier games.
Yeah, no, one suggestion I've got about that, and you're probably already thinking about it, I just want to reinforce it, is whenever you do generate that timeline of things that happen, keep a detailed log what happened, because people will really like to read that, right? It's like, hey, I set up this chaos, and then the chapter ended. So what did that actually bring about, right? And since it's procedural, you can have some pretty interesting stuff go on. Because it's like, I don't know if you ever played Dwarf Fortress, right? But whenever you go to start that game, it simulates like hundreds of years of history before you even start, and then you can just go, you can like read the history of the world that you're about to inherit.
Yeah, I love Dwarf Fortress, but we're actually going for a minimum of time between eras. We really want you to experience the chaos that you've set up.
Okay.
So we do make some tweaks between eras, but they're mostly to set things up so that everyone is in sort of a good starting position to do a little bit of balancing, and to just, it's really, if a game lasts 200 years, then the time between rounds is probably going to last 20 to 50 years. So
Okay,
really a very small amount of time. It's not, the universe is going to be pretty much as you left it. So the example I like to give is, if you expand a great deal and conquer a big swath of the universe, then you might win that round, and then between rounds your empire will fracture and a rebellion will start up, and then in the next game you're sort of playing as one of those fractured shards of your previous empire.
Okay, so it's like a little bit of a reset button, because even if you're clobbering the game, or if you're maybe doing poorly, it kind of puts you a little bit back on the center path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to play as the same faction that you were playing as last time. You sort of get to choose freely between rounds.
Yeah, we might have a mode that forces you to play as direct Descendants, but right now it's not set up that way. It's set up so you can choose any factions from the current era.
Okay, so what actually triggers the era to change? Is that a thing like, okay, that one race, their empire fell or something, and then it's like, okay, well, now we know we're done here, or
so
what makes the curtain fall?
Yeah, so actually it's determined right now entirely by that bar up at the top. So that in the top left, you see there's a victory bar with sort of different colored stripes on it.
Yeah.
When that bar fills up, then I think every player gets one more turn, and then that triggers the end of the round.
So that bar is showing you who has victory points, and so when the total amount of victory points that everyone has gets to the end of that bar, then the round is over. And some things give you a lot of victory points, some things give you a little bit, but basically the entire game, it's slowly inching up there. And of course, if somebody does something that's really, really influential, they'll get a ton of points and they might push it over the edge. But that serves as both the scorekeeper and a marker of how far along you are.
And right now, I have to say, I was playing with that the other day, so if it looks somewhat random, it's because the scores are sort of modified dynamically at the beginning, just randomly, to test out some features on that bar. Yeah, so another question, which was about, have we played Ascension? I actually have not played Ascension, although you are the second person now who's mentioned that to me. Have you played that, Andrew?
Yeah, I've played it. That game is great. Where Ascension, I believe, is the game where you're drafting a deck of cards, and then you use your deck to attack monsters. There's sort of a tableau of monsters you can attack. But it's otherwise kind of a card drafting game, if I remember correctly.
Sorry, I was muted that whole time because I was coughing up a fit. But I wanted to ask you about the cards for each system. They seem to be different for each system I've been encountering so far. Like this one, like I had the option to either enslave natives or educate natives. And I like how educating natives unlocks apparently a planet, I'm guessing?
So Alyssa 03A is a character that you can unlock.
Oh.
Yeah. So when you encounter a new solar system, there's going to be different stuff there, and one of the things they can have is sort of primitive natives, and that gives you the choice of what you're going to do with them. And then maybe there's minerals or wildlife, biodiversity, and all the cards are things that you can play locally in this solar system to develop it. And these are sort of benefiting you, but they're also sort of modifying the map for everyone. I think Alyssa 03A is like someone from the from that civilization that when you educate them, she will join your empire, and you can recruit her to one of your ships.
And what does that do? Does that give that ship a bonus in some respect?
Yeah, so there's the hiring button. I think we turned that off because it's extra buggy down in the bottom right, and that allows you to hire crew members to your ship. So that it's a very ship-centric game, and the two main things you can do to upgrade your ships are equip items and hire crew members. And you start with sort of a variety of characters you can recruit to be the captain or the medical officer. And then as you do things like research technologies or encounter new people or visit new systems, you get additional people that you can recruit.
Wow, so your ships can start off much different at the end of a game than they were at the beginning because of recruiting, but also because of it looks like you can do upgrades and such.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the cool things is that ships also stick around between games. So if you upgrade a ship really heavily in early on, and then some of that technology is lost, if an empire falls or the factory is destroyed, then that ship will kind of stick around with technology from previous games, or maybe characters who are from a race of people who've since gone extinct. The captain of your ship could be the last remaining member of a race that you were playing as in many games ago.
Right. So if I go to a system that someone's already built up, I think I saw this in the last game, where there are already existing things in the system. Can you, if someone else has built them, could you take them over or destroy them and hurt that other empire?
No, not really. So you take the options away from them. Those opportunities are no longer available for other people to play. Yeah, and so those are sort of your things. And eventually new opportunities will spawn. Like you created a factory there, but maybe we haven't put this in, but like the workers there might unionize. That would be a different opportunity that would come up, and you could take that opportunity, you could play that card, but someone else could take advantage of it also if they happen to come by the system in your absence.
Yeah, I've actually been doing a lot of work on the sort of our internal modeling to add layers of complexity and build out the types of things that we can do in terms of how we introduce those new opportunity cards.
Oh. So right now I am both players. I see.
Yeah. So it's set up as a hot seat game right now, and the reason for that is that our AI was mostly just randomly moving around because we haven't done a big push for that yet. And I wanted to have some way for players to compete. This build's a little too unstable to make that really viable, but the plan is in the next month or two I'll be able to put out one that is a bit more stable, where you can actually test out some of the competitive play.
Okay, Chris, this bug is hilarious. I think he just attacked his own ship. Like,
Or
a ship
something.
attacked itself.
Oh, that's totally possible. I changed the way the action system works, and I don't think I put in any checks to keep you from attacking yourself.
So I want to ask, because I love missions, and I love the idea of little snippets of tasks. Like, go here, do this, you'll get a thing. So how do missions work in this game? Like, are they kind of quests? Like, a planet will say, hey, go do this for us. Or an empire will be like, hey, we need your help with this. But you were also saying something like you can be in the military as well? So can you, like, be in the military and have military missions? Or can you be a civilian and have more civilian-focused missions?
Yeah, exactly. So you play as a faction, and your faction sort of has properties to it, and those are actually things that can change. Missions can change those properties. So you might start the match as a military for another faction, and if you do that, you'll get missions that are military focused. So they'll be defending your colonies, conquering new colonies, Sometimes other things militaries might do, like providing relief or evacuations to people. Those will be things that come to you sort of directly from your role as the military of that government. But I think I was mentioning to Jim earlier, you can also get missions like from enemies, like they might support you economically to overthrow your central government.
Ooh.
So you could change your role by doing that type of mission. And that's sort of where like the inspiration from card deck building games comes from, in that you can think of the missions almost like a hand of cards that you're drawing from the world around you, and one of the things those cards can do is change what missions are available in the future.
Oh, that's awesome. Woo. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask, because something you said reminded me of this. I've been playing. Have you guys ever played the real-time strategy game Seven Kingdoms?
I've not played Seven Kingdoms.
Okay, it's a very economic, trade, and espionage focused RTS. There's combat too, but this is a game where you can have a spy be conscripted as a military person for another empire. And the great thing about that, I'm just going to go on a rave here, and then I'm going to ask you about something. The great thing about that is one time I was playing, and my guy actually became king of another empire. He got promoted to general, and then got promoted to king, and then after that, I switched him. So the empire became mine. I never fired a shot. It was great. That's really rare. But I was going to ask you, since you talked about switching sides and whatnot, will there be any kind of intrigue / espionage type stuff you could do, like go spy on these guys for me, something like that? Will there be anything like that?
Yeah, so actually, yes, that's something we're planning. So it's still going to be mitigated through the mission system and the existing card mechanics. So the idea there would be you might be able to spy on another player and see what missions they have available, or have opportunities to sabotage them. And those would come about as a mission to, transport a spy somewhere, or set up, a cover story for a spy so you can get them into their ranks.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
So, yeah, I was really, desperately over the past week trying to get it in so that I could show.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far, and from what I'm seeing in the chat channel, people are liking what they're hearing. But again, people understand this is a very early access, and I think I am using the latest build, Michael, in the chat room. I'm pretty sure I am.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am.
Yeah, it's so the other thing is the other thing that I didn't quite have time to put in for this build is in one of our older builds we had the ship upgrades, and it was this sort of clunky mix between 3D and 2D. So I have this really nice sort of in progress change to that, which is instead of having it be instead of having buttons that hover over the ship to click, I've actually added some little pretty simple 3D models that and a holographic shader, so you can highlight areas inside of your ship and then swap them out. So that I'm excited to reveal that once that's functioning.
Right. So I meant to ask about this earlier, but I got sidetracked. So right now, only the modern era works, but it looks like you can have different factions in each era. So I wanted to ask first, how are the factions chosen for each era? Are they randomly generated, or
so these will be determined by your gameplay. So the new factions, one of the things that completing missions can do is actually create new factions or kill off existing factions.
Oh.
So all of these, so this is actually supposed to be the history of the galaxy so far, where we generated. I don't know how many eras are there, but we generated however many leading up to the modern era. Right now, some of the specifics on that generation process are still sort of just proof of concept. But the plan here is to be able to actually trace back the histories and stories of these different groups that are now in the world.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So okay. Now that we've talked about factions, what are the different eras? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so the eras are sort of our term for the different games. So each game that you play, that race to get the most victory points would be one era, one sort of chapter of the history of your world.
Oh, okay. So you can start at any era?
So basically, the idea is that every game you play is an era in the history of the universe. We sort of seed the history with multiple eras, but then once you start, every game you play adds to that history. And so you can look back at the previous eras and see a chronicle or a history of the entire universe.
Oh, I see. But you can't start off as one of these. Like
no, so
you can look them up. Like, this is these guys and these were these guys. But then, like, this is my era. This is what I have to choose.
Yeah, so it sort of gives historical context to your factions. When we release, we might actually force you to start at Era 1 and start at very low tech with no real history. But for right now, we sort of wanted to give people an idea of what the world is like and show this off.
Right.
So if you play through a game and end the era, then if this is Era 6, then the next game will be Era 7.
Right. So it seems like, since this is pretty quick moving, it would be very well geared for multiplayer, and you do have a multiplayer option. So tell us how multiplayer is going to work. Like, how many players can you support? Will things be even faster than in single player? How is multiplayer looking?
Yep. So right now, we haven't actually started on the online multiplayer. So what we have in terms of multiplayer right now is just the hot seat, but we are planning to add it. The intended way that will work is we'll probably limit it to no more than 4 players online. We may have an option for more, but that's probably what we'd recommend, just because it's turn-based. And my rule for turn-based games is that you want the amount of time it takes other players to perform their turns to not take significantly longer than it takes you to figure out and plan your next turn, because otherwise you end up being bored while you're waiting for them to do stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So the multiplayer will have an option to. So first of all, one thing is you can continue in the same universe. You can also choose to start a new universe. With the multiplayer, what we'll do is we'll let players select a universe to play in, and so that could be one that you've worked on yourself, or it could be a shared universe that's sort of linked to another player that you join games together with.
Oh.
So you could create a history together is sort of the idea there.
Yeah, so you can create a history sort of saved on the server, and then only play that history when you're with the same group of people. So you guys can explore that, do that history together. But we're sort of very aware that turn-based games have the potential to be boring while you're waiting for the other player to go.
Right.
So we're like Chris said, we haven't started on the multiplayer push. But the idea is that when it's not your turn, you'll still be able to look around the map. You'll still be able to look at things, investigate, and we'll maybe give you a little bit extra information, like show you all the stats and really all the dirty details when it's not your turn. And then see, right now you have 5 ships.
Yeah.
And then the other player also has 5 ships. But for multiplayer, what we might do is interleave the ships, kind of like a squad tactics game, so that your ship goes, your opponent's ship goes, your ship goes, your opponent's ship goes, and that'll keep it faster.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh no, I'm out of movement points. Damn it. Or action points.
No.
Son of a bitch. That's okay. I'm gonna build shit. I like that if there's no one to fight, you can just build stuff and improve a system.
Yeah, I always really focus on the building in strategy games.
I love
having a
it.
strong empire. That's the ideal. You just want to have a kick in economy, so that if you run into any trouble, you can steamroll your opponents with troops. But we are working on other attacks you can do. We're putting in some different weapons. We don't have animations for them right now, but like stuns, ion cannons, missiles. We just changed the animation system so that we could get this, in addition to the cool zoom in that happens when you click on things, so that we can be able to track individual missiles or individual fighters for an. And then I mentioned it in the chat. We're working on a sort of planetary bombardment, so you can attack colonies. And all of those things, we're still working on the animations for them, so that's why they're not in.
Yeah, so the animation system is in, but the animations will be coming shortly, hopefully. So.
Right. So now I'm getting to a point where I need to start wrapping this up. I apologize, but I wanted to ask a few final questions. So you are thinking of launching the Kickstarter in a month or so? A month-ish?
Yeah.
So what, around early May we're talking? Late April?
I think we're still we still have to discuss it, but I'm pretty sure that was the discussion, or sort of that was where we were headed. I don't want to commit to anything final on the podcast. So what I would say is if it's something you'd be interested in supporting, the best way to do that right now would be to subscribe on our mailing list, and we will shoot out an email to everyone on there when we launch the Kickstarter, and probably couple weeks leading up to it, just to give them a heads up.
I have to say, both of us, but especially Chris, are real perfectionists. So we've really been working on polishing the game, adding mechanics, getting things looking good and playing fun. And so we're aware that we should just launch a Kickstarter before everything is perfect. But we really want to feel like we're putting the best out there.
Well, my advice is to get the game where you feel ready for people to download it, so you can focus on your new full-time job, which will be marketing your Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. I think it honestly, for us, it comes down to a trade-off in terms of being able to afford rent and food.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I had my way, I would probably delay a Kickstarter by a good 3 months to make sure I had a very solid, fun demo that I could just push out and let people try out to get an idea of how it plays. But we may end up having to go a little bit before that and satisfy people just with gameplay and an explanation of the mechanics.
I think most people understand that a lot of Kickstarter stuff, like most Kickstarter game Kickstarters, don't even have any kind of demo or build to share with people. So I mean that's only one part of the equation. If you basically say to people, this is our dream, this is our game, these are the risks, just be very transparent, you'll be fine. I understand this is your baby. I get that. I can tell you guys are very protective of your baby. And that is actually pretty fucking, please don't take this the wrong way. It's adorable how perfection-y you guys are toward this. It really is just really sweet and loving, and you can just tell you guys love this. So if you convey that love of this game and what you're doing, sorry if I sound weird, it's because I have another cough drop. It'll come through in the Kickstarter pitch, and that'll really push you over the edge more than any build, really. I think anyway.
Thanks, man.
I mean, if you write it from the heart and don't have a creepy pitch video, you'll be great.
Well, that's very heartening, I have to say, because you're absolutely right that it's been sort of our obsession in a way. I mean, the past 2.5 years have been just every day working on this, talking about it, figuring out things we can do better. And so putting it out there is, it's scary, but I'm also really excited to do it. I just want to make sure it, takes off. So.
Oh yeah, you could tell in every email and our conversation here how much love you guys have put into this, how much you care about how this game not even looks, just plays. You really didn't care about how it looked for me. You cared that it worked, and that it played, and that it would look good on the stream. And if you convey that care, I think you'll do all right.
Thank you. I really hope you're right, and we'll find out soon. So.
Yeah, we're a small studio. It's mostly the two of us. I do want to give a shout out to Johan, our landscape artist, and Victor, our character artist, and Gage, our publicist. But as a small studio, this is really like our dream. This is really like the game that we've always wanted to play.
And it sounds like it has all the right moving parts. You have randomly generated galaxies. You have missions. You have all these different types of intrigue, diplomacy, combat, all these different things. And it sounds like every game can be just so different from the last one.
Yeah, that was definitely something that we really wanted going into it. I'd mentioned several times the deck building game inspiration from deck building games. One of the things I love about Dominion is that because each game sort of changes what's in play and what you start with, it makes each game play as like almost a unique and new experience.
Right.
And I really wanted to try and bring that over, and we both did. We wanted to bring that over with the design here into the sort of space strategy genre.
Now, since each game is going to be almost a self-contained history of a universe, is there going to be any kind of replay or log or story kind of generated from each game where people can go back and go, oh, that's what happened in that one. That was great.
Yeah, so that timeline screen where you select your factions at the beginning, that's sort of version 1 of that. And it does give a little bit of history and explanation of the factions when you select them, although the text generation there is still,
Oh, no, I'm not talking about, mechanical. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about your current game. I'm talking about finished games. Can you, go back later, and look at a diary entry for that game, and see, oh, this is what happened in game 4.
Yeah, so for previous games, you'll be able to go and look at the history of that universe.
Perfect.
And then if you be able to click on individual factions there, and you'll sort of get a little history of that faction. Right now, the histories are very brief, but we're also hoping to add important battles, important research, or just all important events to that timeline.
Yeah, have a timeline and single out certain big events that happened along the way. That'd be great. Just a graphical timeline, even.
Yeah, I think sort of the image we've both had and that we've discussed, but is probably will take second seat to getting some other gameplay things in there. Is I would love to have a timeline that you could zoom in and sort of just see in detail.
Oh yeah.
The events. And we could have the more important events show up the more zoomed out you are, and sort of show the more moment-to-moment events when you zoom all the way in. We do keep track of all of the things that you've done, all of the cards you've played. That whole history is sort of stored. So it's a lot of it would be building out the interface for that and figuring out how best to do it. So.
Wow. Well, guys, I gotta say, this game has come a long way since the last time. I remember the last time you could just fly around a planet and shoot something. This time you actually have some things to do and build. So that's awesome.
Thank you, yeah.
So we're looking at a Kickstarter for at least a month or so-ish from now. And also, I guess my last question is, beyond the Kickstarter, how can people try out this game? Is there going to be any kind of alpha funding that people can buy into a pre-order type thing? Or are you just going to have a demo?
We don't have anything like that set up right now. Honestly, the probably the only way to track us and support us right now is just signing up for the email list.
You can also follow us on Twitter or Instagram, or we've got a YouTube channel. Or I'll put those in the
That
chat.
too, and a Facebook. I forgot about the fact that we actually do have someone helping us out with some social media presence now.
Yeah, we actually update pretty regularly with screenshots and art and stuff.
Oh yeah, look at that.
So that's somewhat news to me, though. I like peripherally knew that, but yeah. So that's a good way to follow us, and I think we'll probably make some announcements soon about the Kickstarter and potentially other means of support. I know you mentioned you mentioned something about like alpha support. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look into those things. Maybe I know there's a T-shirt service from Amazon that gives you a cut and some other things like that. So we'll look into it. It's definitely a good question.
Well, no, I'm talking about like there are a lot of people who skip crowdfunding and go like, oh, if you pre-order for $20 now, you get it on the alpha. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Or if you pre-order at $30 now, you get an alpha and a soundtrack. You know, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, so like sort of around the kick, like almost like in place of the Kickstarter, you could support us by buying through a direct store.
Yeah, like maybe after the Kickstarter, like people can crowdfund after that. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
not crowdfund.
that's great.
I mean alpha fund. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Out of curiosity, what is your favorite website or platform for that sort of alpha?
Oh, there usually is not a specific platform. Usually the developer just has like a PayPal link on their site that says, give us $20, we'll send a key to your email. You know, that's that. Or we'll send a download. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's fairly simplistic. But it's not just PayPal. Some people use Humble widgets, I see as well.
Mm-hmm.
So both seem pretty popular in that regard. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that down in my to-do list. So,
but and there's also like sites like itch.io where you can sell stuff like that. Like, so you have options. I'm not saying the Kickstarter is not going to succeed, but I mean, along with the Kickstarter, this could be like, oh, you missed the Kickstarter and you still want to support us? Come to our site and we can buy into the alpha. You know, that kind of thing.
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I see that quite a bit because I follow a lot of Kickstarters.
Yeah, and we really are working with an eye towards a releasable build right now. That's sort of our next major milestone. We've got, a good looking alpha. We've got all the mechanics in there. We're slowly adding content, missions, but getting something that's stable and ready for the masses is definitely, I would say, our next step. Awesome.
All right, well, I think we're going to wrap this up. Jim, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, folks, gentlemen, I want to first thank you for joining us, coming back almost a year later.
Thank you. And again, it's been a pleasure to talk to you guys.
I think it's like 44 shows since the last time you were on. So, folks, next week is our 50th show, 150th show. And we're going to be starting a new format. Like, we're actually going to be experimenting with a format. Like structure, which we've never. I know we've never done this before, but we're gonna try it for at least a few episodes and see how we like it. But yeah, we're gonna actually try structure, so that'll be fun. Next week, there's no multiplayer madness this week because I'm gonna be out of town. But next week we're talking to our old friend Chris Stockman. This will be, I think, his third time on the show. To talk about Fleets of Soul, his capital ship, tactical story, space game thing that actually looks pretty cool. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to us, and good luck with your Kickstarter in a month or so, and with the game. Folks, again, the site, what is it, voidborne.com, I think?
Yes, Voidborne with an E.
That's Voidborne, born with an E, .com. You can sign up for our mailing list there. We'll let you know when we have a playable beta.
Right, or follow them on Twitter or Facebook or all the social means. This will also be linked to in the show notes, clearly. But folks, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us and watching us. And I hope you enjoy the show. And have a good night.